Alright, hello. It's been about a year since I did my last few videos about microdosing, me starting microdosing, and um, my little update after I think a week or two of doing it. Um, but I never really came back and did an actual update. So here I am. I'm sorry, I'm just not a social media person. I don't like talking to a camera. I feel like I'm talking to myself, and it's very awkward. So, um, I started off with 100 milligrams. They came pre-packaged in these little capsules that I showed you in the last videos. Um, and I didn't feel like 100 milligrams did anything for me. So I doubled it. I took two. And I did the James Fadiman method, which was dose on one day, take 2 days off, and then dose on the fourth day. So, like, dose day one, then two off, and then take it again, repeat. Um, that did a lot better. And what that did for me was it put me into a deeper thought process. So, I have borderline personality disorder and ADHD. I am a very reactive person. I get upset very easily. I've dealt with a lot of trauma in my life, and I've had to go through a lot of situations that have put me in a constant state of fight or flight. And that sort of helps in contributing to my shitty reactions towards people. Like, I've owned it. I know they're shitty. I know nobody wants to hang around with someone like that. You know, it's difficult. It's really difficult to be around people like me. I get it. So, what I found that microdosing did for me was put me in a deeper thought process. So, when problems like this arise, I was able to think about my response before responding to the situation, which I've never been able to do before in my life. I always just go for the jugular and ask questions later and ask how I can fix it later. And it's like, sometimes you can't fix it though because you went too far. So being able to do that was mind blowing for me. And what's interesting about the mushrooms as well is like you're fully conscious. You know, you're fully conscious, you're aware of what you're doing, you know what you're doing, and you can remember what you did during this time in future times, especially if you microdose for long enough, because what microdosing does is it helps portions of your brain communicate with each other that never have communicated before. So you're creating new, like, I think they call them neural pathways. You're creating new lines of communication in your brain, so you're able to harness these new skills, which is really, really interesting. That's also why they're doing a lot more research with not just psilocybin, but psychedelics in general in terms of mental health and all of these things. That was the biggest thing for me. That was the biggest thing that it did for me and the most helpful thing. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. And the only thing that really stopped me from microdosing on a regular basis and any longer than the half a year that I did it for was the cost. The cost was astronomical, but it's worth it. It's worth it. If you can afford it, do it. If you have the means of growing mushrooms yourself, absolutely go for it. You need a very, very sterilized environment, and with two cats, a bunch of plants, in a small little apartment, there's just no way for me to be able to sterilize good enough for me to be able to harvest or grow my own crop. So yeah, so in terms of focusing ability, though, it did nothing for my ADHD. If anything, it probably made it worse. Not on the long term, but during dose day. So mushrooms kind of put you in a free thinking, but a deep thinking sort of thought process. But it's hard to focus in on any one task. So, not everybody feels that way. Some people fly through the day and think that, it makes everything more enjoyable, everything is better, which, when it comes to physical activities, yes. But if you have to do schoolwork, things like that, I found that very difficult. But in terms of like cleaning, playing with your kids, taking the dog out for a walk, going for a walk, doing exercise, stuff like that, oh my God, the best. Absolutely the best. Also, there's microdosing, but then there's also macrodosing, which is where you take larger doses. I never went over a gram myself because I just don't feel comfortable being in a heavily altered state just yet. Maybe I'll work my way up there. I don't know. I don't know yet. But what I did, because the mushrooms that I get them from this one website, and the potency is relatively consistent, like pretty consistent for a mushroom anyway. Very strong. Everything's tested. Everything is dried out properly, so all the molecules inside the mushroom stay intact. Nothing's getting disturbed, which is what I like. Also, I just find ordering from the internet kind of sketchy, so yeah, I found my one website and that's it. But good products, really good products. Highly recommend. Yeah, what else? Yeah, by the way, the website, if you're in Canada, because it's only for Canada, is Blue Goba. But, right, macrodosing. Macrodosing is a whole nother level. I did 800 milligrams to begin with this little guy. Get yourself a micro scale for sure. This is, they call this a jewelry scale. So if you're looking on Amazon or whatever, jewelry scale is your thing. I did 800 milligrams for my first sort of mini macro dose, but that was enough. That was enough to put a kaleidoscope haze over everything. But what it did for me as well is it brought up past traumas that I have yet to deal with myself. Things like, for example, I had a flashback to when I was like 5 years old and I was sleeping with my mom still, because I used to do that. I didn't want to sleep alone. And it was when we were cuddling in bed and I was getting ready to go to sleep. The lights are off. And then after that, it went to a flashback of when I was homeless in Toronto. And what that means for me and what that meant to me basically means like I'm dealing with a situation where my mom and I cannot really communicate very well, but I'm still sort of longing for that warmth and comfort of my mom still, but I can't have that, and it's gone. It's gone. Like, that's what the flashback of my homelessness was symbolizing, I feel. Because, yeah, I don't have that. She helps me in her own way in terms of helping me care for my child while I am dealing with my mental health and also going through school right now. But in terms of being able to talk to her and to have a heart-to-heart conversation, that emotional availability for her is just not there. So that's something that I need to come to terms with, and that's a trauma, like a traumatic situation for me that I need to deal with, and that's what the mushrooms were showing me then during that experience. The thing with macrodosing, though, is that it's a lot less controlled. Like, whatever thoughts come to you, those are the thoughts that are coming to you. Like, you don't have any control over it, really. But I find that to be quite therapeutic in a way. It's almost like a forced meditation. Like, they're forcing you to think on these problems, to think on these situations that you may have been pushing to the back of your brain and wanting to just bury and ignore for now because it's easier and it's less painful. But these make you deal with your shit if you do take a macrodose. So if you're not ready to deal with your shit on an intense level like that, maybe avoid it. But yeah, I found it to be incredibly helpful. Anyway, like always, do your research. Make sure your research. Yeah, blah. Can't talk. Make sure if you are taking an antidepressant, SSRI medication, to detox yourself for at least 3 weeks beforehand, longer if possible. I don't want to, just scary things can happen, and I just don't want that to happen to anybody. Don't do it if you're under 18, because I'm just not condoning any of that. I don't see nothing. Yeah, reading like some good sources, like anything from Terrence McKenna. Terrence McKenna's amazing. James Fadiman. There's a few other names that are escaping my mind right now. Have a Good Trip is a really good documentary on Netflix. I really like that one. Yeah, and just research microdosing and mushrooms. There's a lot of information out there. And just make an informed decision that works best for you and what you feel the most comfortable with. Anyway, happy times. Hopefully a happier future. And good luck to you.